So now I have on this video is the wheel set. We'll be skipping the frame set installation for now, as the wheel set is part of the bike also. So that's the one that will be going back after. For now, I'll be showing you what I'm putting on my wheel set, and mention some parts also that showing you later on. So the wheel set is made by Bontrager. It's model XXX4. It had 24 spokes, and it is a full carbon wheel set. Then this what I'm doing right now is putting the cassette on the free hub. The cassette combination is 11 the highest, 28 is the lowest, and this one is 11 speed. So this mainly what I use is on the climbs up to 25 T, as I use. Worst to worst, I go 26, and the most steepest I go 28, and that will be the maximum, but very rare that I use 28. I end up at 25. So this is the cassette combination that I'm using right now. The gearings and ratios, it goes down by 2, then after it goes down by 1. So if you start from the highest, the 28, after the 28 is 26, 24, 22, then you have there all the way down after. So 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 12, and then the highest will be the 11. So these are the combination of the cassette that I have. Now I'm done with the cassette. I'll be putting my new tires and the new inner tube. So make sure if you have the new tires, you should have also the new inner tube. The inner tube that I have is the Silka Latex Tube, which is more lighter and helps more on the tires, which the tires should have a lower resistance, and it will add up additional wattage for me, and less friction on the road, especially also with the vibration and any impact on the road. So this setup is my first time using a latex tube instead of the regular one. I have a video on this if you want to watch it, so I'll be posting another video on that one, and you'll watch later what are their differences between the regular tube and the latex tube, on what are their advantages and disadvantages also. So I'll be doing a review on that as well. But for now, as what I'm doing here is the installation of the tires and the inner tube. The tires that I have is the GV5000 made by Continental. It's 700 by 25, and it's a tan wall, which is a limited edition Tour de France series. So that's the one that I'm doing here. So here's the tires that I have. Sometimes there's like a defect. If ever there is, you need to check your new tires so that to avoid the problems later. But mainly this one is new, so it's very rare that we have those issues. But at least you check the tires before putting it in your rims. So as you see here, this is the Tour de France official tires, limited edition tires with the tan wall. And now with these tires, I have the arrow orientation of the rotation that I need to follow. So as you see there, the arrow will turn from turning. It should be clockwise for the arrow, so I need to follow that orientation so that I won't have a problem with the tires later before the installation. But mostly some of the tires doesn't have the arrow orientation, so regardless on where you install it, and this one that I have is you need to get that proper orientation for the installation. So I'm putting here right now is the new tires. So as I'm showing you here, when you're putting the tires, you should go like one side to the other, putting it on the rim. You cannot put it together since these are the inner tube. So put one side of your tires first, then after once you're ready, the second one will be the inner tube. So these are the things that you should be careful of. And this is the most delicate part is if you put the inner tube, which is what I'm doing right now. So that's the one I'm pushing in. You have to start with the valve first before you go around. So there's no proper orientation where you have to go. It's either you go clockwise or counterclockwise. But always if you start from your right, it will go to your left, so means that's a counterclockwise. If you start from your left, it's going to your right, it means that is clockwise. So now you have to put the inner tube properly. Make sure the inner tube have some air, a little air, not that much, so that it will go around the rim easy, and it's not that hard to put it on the sides also, and making sure that it will sit properly on the rims. So now you just have to take off the air once you put it around the tires, and make sure, as I told you before, you should start on the valve and don't end up on the valve. If you start on the valve, it should end up like 1 or 2 inches away from the valve, which is good. But if you start somewhere and you're ending up on the valve, you might give damage on the valve after, and you cannot pump the tires. So with this, what I'm doing, I started on the valve. I'm doing the orientation of counterclockwise. So counterclockwise will be from my right going to my left, and tires are round, so I'm making sure the inner tube are installed properly so that I will not be damaging the inner tube, because the inner tube that I have is a delicate one. It's a made of latex. It's a very thin. They're prone to punctures, so I have to be careful. And my rims are is carbon, so I'll be using a plastic lever later, which I recommend. If you have carbon rims, you have to have that plastic lever. Don't use the metal one or the aluminum one, which is not good because you might damage your rims. Then it will give you a problem later. So this rim is the tubeless ready, but I'm not ready yet for the tubeless. So what I got is the what you call clincher. So clincher had the inner tube. Now I'll be reviewing also those kind of tires that road bikes using. So make sure to follow my channel. If you're new to my channel, make sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell for the latest upload that I'll be having. And also hit that like button. If you have some questions, comment below. So as I continue here with the installation. Alright, we're about to end the installation of the tires. So I'm finalizing here the last part that I'll be pushing in. I have to take care of that inner tube inside so that I won't be damaging the inner tube after. So now once you install the tires, make sure to double check. You go around the tires again, because there might be something like a bead coming off or the inner tube. And look at this, what I found. There's an inner tube coming off from the tires between the rims and the tires, which is not good. So this is the good thing. You have to check the tires first before pumping, because this what will be the problem that I will be encountering later is once I pump the tires and putting some air there, the inner tube will come out from there. So either I'll be damaging the tires or I'll be damaging the inner tube. But anyways, both of them, mostly this will affect the inner tube because the inner tube are more on damaging than the tires, because tires have more harder compound comparing to the inner tube. So by this, I did open the tires again and reinstall it after. Now what I did, or what I'm doing, is taking off the tires and reinstall it because of that inner tube problem. So now I'm putting it back and making sure again to check the imperfection of the installation for the inner tube. And oh, I'm taking off the tires here. Otherwise, I skip it, but actually I'm taking off the tires. So this, I'll be moving the inner tube more entirely so that it won't be hitting the wall of the rims and the wall of the tires after. So I open it again partially. I'm not taking it off because I have to push in more the inner tube, which I need. So I'm double checking on what is the one that was showing there. Then what I'm doing right now is putting in the inner tube properly to avoid damage on it. So I'll just have to make sure. Then by this method, if every time you put there, regardless it's either new or old tires, you have to double check, because this might happen to you on the road. This is the most important one that you should learn, because if you have a flat tires, even though you have inner tube to put as a replacement, but if you don't know how to remove the tires, then your extra tube will be useless after. So now I'm putting it back and making sure not to damage the inner tube. So slowly, you don't have to hurry on this process. It's not good either to hurry because there might be some parts that you might damage. So instead of saving, you'll be buying another inner tube just for this who is something happens after. So as We'll continue with the video. Now, on this, people ask how much I put air on my tires. So, tires have their own manufacturing specs. So, putting air on the tires or following somebody that uh, they have on their tires is not good. So each tires have a different manufacturer spec. The one that I have here, the maximum is 125 psi and minimum is 100 psi. So this, you have to make sure that you put enough air or less air, or you're on in the middle. So since I have the 125 psi, what I usually use for all of my tires, mainly because since I use Continental, I use 100 psi. That's my maximum. So if I pump air on my tires, I put 110. Then of course, if you take off the valve from the pump, the valve will just throw up some air after, but it's only less. So roughly around 105 psi that I have. So make sure when pumping and finalizing everything that the bead of the tires on the rim sits properly before you finalizing putting the proper air that you have. So, well, I'll give you a little story about this tire thing. We have a fellow rider who did the tires also. So what he did with his tires, he pumped it on 100 psi. Then they went for a 60-kilometer ride and went back home without any problem. So once he's home, he put his bike on his garage. Then they went for a supper. But you know what happened is there's a big explosion in his garage, and he was wondering what it is. At the end, he found out one of his tires in the back did an explosion because he over pumped the tires. So when they mentioned it to me, I asked him what is the brand of his tires and make a research on what exactly happens, why it was exploded. Then we found out that tires cannot accommodate 100 psi. The maximum psi for that tires is only 80. So imagine 80 only, you're over put the air in there, then he put the 20 more psi on that one, because the tires when you're running it on a long period of time, especially on the hot days, the for example 100 psi that you put, it will be more. So imagine that air stays in there, and the one that they put was not even the specs that needed for that tires. Then of course at the end of the day it will explode after. So make sure check the specs of your tires before putting some air in there, and don't complicate asking somebody how much they put on their tires, because this depends on the manufacturer's specs after. So this is done. I put the rotor also, so this is ready to install on the bike. So this is the final look of my tires with the tan wall. Then I'll be moving on and start with the front side of the wheel set.